The moment the slide deck loaded on the projector, my stomach sank. It was mine. Every bullet point, every metric analysis, every logistic improvement in that quarter had been compiled by me over late nights and early mornings. I'd even color-coded the forecast charts, but in the bottom right corner of the first slide, there it was, prepared by Tyler Langford. I didn't say a word. Brett stood at the head of the room, beaming like he'd discovered sliced bread. Let's thank Tyler for optimizing operations. This quarter, he declared, clapping first, so others would follow. They did. People clapped. Some even nodded, murmuring, "Impressive." No one looked at me. I smiled. It was a practice smile, the kind you wear at funerals or forced office birthdays. My face burned, but I kept it steady. I didn't glance at Tyler. I didn't need to. I knew exactly how this happened. He'd asked me last week to review his slides. He'd sent a blank deck. I'd filled it in with the framework I'd already drafted, thinking it would save him time, thinking it would help us all move faster. What a fool I'd been. He stood beside Brett now, nodding along as the presentation continued. He didn't stumble. He didn't apologize. He didn't acknowledge me once, as if he'd built all of it from scratch. "Really great streamlining across El Paso and Flagstaff," said one board member. "This is exactly the kind of proactive thinking we need in regional ops." I felt my pulse in my neck. I pressed my hands together in my lap and bit the inside of my cheek. Hard. Brett closed the meeting with a wink. "Tyler's going places," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "The board will be watching his path closely." I stood slowly when the room emptied. Tyler walked past me, pretending to read something on his phone. I left without a word. My heels clicked against the tile sharp, and even until I reached the elevator. They hadn't just overlooked me, they'd erased me. I didn't cry. I didn't confront anyone. I just walked straight to my desk, opened a clean notebook, and wrote a date at the top, Exit Strategy Phase 1. I started at Stratuscore 5 years ago with a folding chair and a half-broken monitor in the corner of the Elgin satellite office. The floor buzzed with warehouse traffic, and my desk overlooked a loading dock. I didn't mind. It felt honest, tangible. After my mother's second stroke and the end of my brief second marriage, I needed something that didn't lie to me. The systems did exactly what you told them to, nothing more, nothing less. And I learned to speak their language. By my second year, I had overhauled our routing algorithm to shave 2 days off delivery time across the Western Corridor. When Hurricane Leona shut down 3 ports in the Gulf, I rerouted shipments inland before anyone else even noticed the alert. We fulfilled $2 million in contracts others would have lost. That same year, our Tucson warehouse caught fire. While Brett was at a resort in Utah, I coordinated emergency redistribution across 3 states. Clients didn't even realize the disruption until we'd already resolved it. I didn't do it for applause. I did it because people were counting on those machines to arrive. I did it because I believed that competence spoke louder than charm. Brett disagreed. "Every time a leadership position opened, we're seriously considering you, Noelia. Every time we onboarded a new executive, they'll be leaning on your expertise. This is your chance to shine." And every time a man who'd played golf with someone's uncle got the title, I got a Starbucks gift card and a slightly larger workload. "Just wait a little longer," Brett would say, like patience was a currency I could keep spending indefinitely. I convinced myself it was worth it. For stability, for Mom's medication, for dignity. I told myself I was building something until the day I saw my own ideas presented under someone else's name. It wasn't about the slides. It was the realization that I'd mistaken endurance for progress. That every time I'd waited quietly, they'd marked me as someone easy to overlook. I flipped the page in my notebook and wrote a second line beneath the date. No more waiting. Tuesday morning came with the usual buzz emails, reports a busted fulfillment tracker in the Prescott facility. I resolved it before my coffee cooled. At 8:47 a.m., a company-wide notification landed in my inbox: Leadership Summit, RSVP required. But when I clicked it, nothing happened. No invite found. Strange. I opened the shared list out of habit. My name wasn't there. Janice from procurement had it. So did Marcus in fleet compliance. He started 3 months ago. So did Tyler. Of course he did. I closed the tab and leaned back in my chair, staring at the corkboard across from my desk. Last year, Brett had asked me to present at that same summit. Noelia, you're the backbone. Let's show them what real logistics excellence looks like. I'd built the entire case study around a machinery reroute through Amarillo. He took credit for the framing. I didn't complain. This year, I wasn't even in the room. I took a slow breath and opened the employee directory. Invite managed by Donovan Kramer, HR Brett's brother-in-law. Right. I didn't call. I didn't ask. I knew the difference between an error and a message. I stood, walked to the break room, poured myself stale coffee, and returned to my desk. As I reached the hallway, Tyler rounded the corner with his usual easy gait. Polished shoes, tailored shirt, oblivious confidence. He nodded at me, smiled like we were old friends. You'll be proud of what I'll do with your systems, he said. He didn't mean it as an insult. That was the worst part. I didn't answer, just held his gaze long enough for the smile to twitch. Then I walked past him and back to my desk. He thought I was a chapter he'd already read. He thought I'd stand by, quietly cheering as he rearranged what I'd built like furniture in a new apartment. I opened my notebook again, turned to the second page. Phase 2. Observe the cracks. Record everything. Tyler began shadowing me more frequently after the summit invite went out. Brett called it a transition period, but never clarified what was transitioning or who. At first, I pretended not to notice. I answered his questions with clipped precision, kept my tone neutral, and didn't volunteer anything he didn't ask for. But the gaps were impossible to ignore. He didn't know what a JIT buffer was. We were reviewing our supply chain contingencies for the Prescott facility when I asked him where the overflow inventory was stored in case of a sudden distributor shortfall. He blinked at me and asked what JIT stood for. Just in time, I said flatly. It's literally how we've been operating across half the Southwest since 2020. Oh, he said, chuckling. Guess I skipped that module. He moved on like it didn't matter. That was the moment something shifted. The weight of it didn't land with a bang. It settled like dust, like an answer I'd known but hadn't let myself say out loud. He wasn't a threat. He was a placeholder, a stand-in with a clean haircut and a family name. He didn't see the architecture of the systems he was inheriting. He saw levers to pull, not circuits to respect. And Brett wasn't grooming him for competence. He was grafting him into place to ensure the legacy stayed in the bloodline, not a team, not a company, a monument. And I'd built the foundation for it brick by brick, unaware I was constructing something I'd never be invited to live inside. Later that evening, I watched Tyler try to edit a routing protocol in our test environment. He adjusted a data value that would have rerouted critical components through a vendor we'd dropped for fraud 2 years ago. He didn't even blink. I pulled up the audit logs, saved the edits, and backed up the original schema to a private drive. Not sabotage, just insurance. Then I opened my notebook to a fresh page. Phase 3. Confirm the fault lines. Let them walk on them. It was nearly 7:20 p.m. when I returned to the office that night. I'd left my notebook in the conference room after a client call and didn't want to risk it being tossed or skimmed. The building was quiet, just the hum of printers, the occasional echo from janitorial carts. As I passed the conference wing, I heard voices through the wall. Brett's voice, low and certain. She'll stay. Mortgage sick mother. She's locked in. We don't need to overthink it. Then a second voice. Donovan from HR, calm and complicit. And Tyler. He's the future. Young. Presentation skills. Clean record. The board likes polish. And he listens. There was a pause. Then Brett, again, Noelia's useful, but she's a support beam, not a front pillar. She won't leave. She can't afford to. I stood frozen in the hallway, heart steady. Not racing, not surprised, just done. I slipped my phone from my coat pocket and hit record. I kept the mic close to the drywall. The voices carried clean. She trains him, transitions him. Then we promote her. Laterally, Brett said. Give her a title that sounds impressive but keeps her under Tyler's chain. They laughed. Soft, short, strategic. I stopped recording after 2 more minutes and walked away before my presence registered on motion sensors. I didn't take my notebook. I didn't need it anymore. At home, I saved the file to 2 drives, one encrypted and offline. Then I opened a spreadsheet and began listing vendor contacts' emergency protocol gaps and every system they depended on that I'd written updated or protected. Not to sabotage, just to prepare. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I planned, because while Brett built illusions and Tyler rehearsed control, I already knew where every circuit ran and what would short first, and I had the tape. The next morning I arrived early and sent the vendor audit update. Tyler arrived late again, flustered. Brett walked past my desk and said, "Thanks for being a team player, Noelia." I opened my notebook and wrote one more line. Phase 4, make them believe I'm still inside the plan. I waited until the building settled into that late Friday stillness. Phones quiet. Lights dimmed. Half the office already headed toward weekend plans. It was 4:45 p.m. when I walked toward Brett's door envelope in hand. The carpet muffled my steps, but I wanted him to hear me coming. He looked up from his monitor, surprised but forced a smile. "Noelia, something I can help you with." I placed the envelope on his desk and slid it forward. "This is my 2-week notice." The smile cracked. "Wait, what? You heard me." He stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Is this about Tyler, about the summit?" "This is ridiculous." I didn't speak. "You're quitting because of him." His voice lifted sharp with disbelief. "You've been here 5 years. You think you'll find another role at your age?" I tilted my head. "Then I guess you won't mind showing him how the Prescott system works yourself." He pushed back from his desk, jaw tight. "You're making a mistake, a big one, walking away from this. You'll burn every bridge on your way out." "No," I said softly. "I'm just not going to keep standing under one that's collapsing." He laughed once, bitter. "You're emotional. This is rash." I nodded. "That's exactly how you want to frame it." I turned to leave. He stood abruptly. "Don't expect a reference. I never needed one from you." At my desk, I logged out, powered down, and tucked my badge into my bag. No theatrics, no final speech, just closure. The office lights buzzed faintly overhead as I took one last look around. Tyler's desk was empty again. Someone in procurement was playing music too loud through earbuds. The silence felt clean. On my walk to the elevator, I passed the break room, paused, then reached for my phone. I opened my backup files and reviewed the Prescott failover map, the one Tyler had tried to simplify. Then I wrote a short note and pinned it above my desk before leaving. For whoever replaces me. Prescott routes through Chandler during Q3 delays. If you don't catch it, you'll lose 3 days of flow. I arrived at my favorite coffee shop at 7:15 a.m. Monday, ordered a cortado and settled by the window with my phone on silent. Outside, the early Austin heat shimmered across the pavement. Inside, it was quiet, peaceful. At 7:41, the first missed call came in from Stratuscor's general line, then 3 more. Then a text from Marcus in Fleet Compliance Systems down. "Is this you?" I didn't respond. By 8:03, I had 12 missed calls. The last voicemail was from Brett. His voice trembled under the forced calm. "Noelia, if you're seeing this, please call me back. Tyler, or made some changes. Morrison Industries is threatening legal action. I just need to know, was Chandler a real route? It was. But Tyler had overwritten the JIT trigger node without updating the supplier sync. Now Chandler's delay cascaded into 3 missed shipments. Flagstaff was frozen. El Paso's load balancing couldn't compensate. Vendors weren't getting answers, and Morrison, their biggest account, wasn't waiting. They were hemorrhaging credibility before the first coffee run cleared the floor. I took another sip and listened to the rest of Brett's message. "They're saying we breached terms. $2 million in product. Just tell me how to fix this. I deleted the voicemail. By 9:12, I had a message from Tyler. Just one line, I think I messed something up. I closed my phone, slipped it into my bag, and stepped out into the sunlight. The air smelled like warm cement and cedar. I walked 2 blocks to the bookstore I used to visit on Sundays, bought a new notebook, and sat outside flipping through blank pages. By noon, I had 17 vendor emails forwarded from my personal contacts. Some were sympathetic, others were blunt. Most wanted to know where I'd land next. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt still. Later that evening, I opened my laptop and drafted 3 thank you notes to Morrison Copperline and Greystone Lift Systems for their trust and their patience. Then I opened a 4th note. To myself, Phase 5. Answer only to those who've earned your silence. The first call came at 10:06 a.m., Tuesday. Hi, this is Lyle Reddick from Copperline Tools. Is this still your number? I stepped onto my balcony phone to ear. It is. We got a strange email from Stratus Core this morning. Tyler tried to reassure us about service continuity and some modernization initiative. But the thing is, we didn't ask for change. We just wanted the reliability you gave us. I didn't speak. So he said, his voice lowering, if you're going somewhere else, just let us know. We'll follow you. We don't care about logos. We care about who picks up the phone when a shipment goes sideways. I thanked him, calmly, professionally, without confirming anything. He wasn't the only one. By noon, I'd received messages from Greystone Lift Morrison's senior procurement director, and even a quiet nudge from FreightLinks, a firm that had never once spoken directly to me, but had apparently heard things. The irony wasn't lost on me. 5 years, and Brett thought I was invisible, but now that I'd left, everyone else saw me clearer than ever. That afternoon, while scanning through old SOP drafts I hadn't yet deleted, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, Houston area code. Noelia Marquez, a woman's voice asked. Yes, my name is Dina Shah. I'm head of regional operations at Mira Nova Industries. We're expanding into the Southwest, and well, your name keeps coming up. I leaned back in my chair. We're building something in Houston, she said, and we'd like to build it with you. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence hang just long enough to remind myself that this moment wasn't about ego. It was about clarity, about leverage, about knowing that what Brett dismissed as a role others recognized as infrastructure. Would you be open to a conversation, she asked. I smiled. Yes, I would. After we hung up, I opened my notebook again. Phase 6. Stop asking for a seat. Bring the table. Brett called Wednesday afternoon voice, carefully measured. Noelia. I've been speaking with HR, and look, we know the last week hasn't gone smoothly. Mistakes were made, but I think there's a way forward. I let him talk. We'd like to bring you back under a new title, Strategic Operations Consultant. Same compensation, flexible hours. You'd report to Tyler, of course, but you'd essentially guide the system transition. He just needs your intuition, your touch. The structure's in place, we just need your expertise layered in. I almost laughed then, but I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking this was emotional for me. If I had intuition, I said you'd have promoted me years ago. He was quiet on the other end. Look, this isn't about ego, he said finally. This is about continuity. No, I said. This is about control. And I'm not stepping into the same cage just because you polished the bars. Noelia, don't be dramatic. You built your name here. Why walk away now because you only value me when I'm gone? And that's not value, that's panic. I ended the call before he could protest. 15 minutes later, Tyler sent an email asking if I'd reconsider. He was polite, even apologetic. The subject line read, "We can still build this right." I replied with one line, "Not if you keep using blueprints you didn't understand." Then I archived the thread. The offer from Miranova arrived the next morning. Regional Director, Southwest Operations, 42% salary increase, full decision authority over supply chain systems, my name on the contract, the signature line, the welcome banner, no token title, no sideline seat, no nephew to train. I signed it in silence, then closed my laptop and went for a walk. The sun was warm, steady. The sidewalks buzzed with people on their way to somewhere. I walked slowly, deliberately, not rushing toward anything, but never looking back. By the time I returned home, another message had arrived. Subject transition notice, Morrison Greystone Copper Line. 6 months later, a headline floated across my inbox like a quiet trumpet blast. Stratus Corps loses 4 major accounts. Internal nepotism probe underway. I clicked it without urgency, just curiosity. The article was clinical. Morrison Industries, Copper Line Tools, Greystone Lift, Freight Links, gone. The board had launched an investigation. Brett Langford had been terminated with cause. Tyler had resigned shortly after to pursue academic development. Translation, he drowned, and they gave him a lifeboat labeled grad school. I leaned back in my chair and took in the view 21 floors above downtown Houston, my new office at Miranova, catching the late light like it had been waiting for me to arrive. My phone buzzed. Marquez, I answered. "This is Cheryl Rhodes," a familiar voice said, "CEO at Morrison. We just saw the article." Shame it took this long, but not surprising. "Appreciate the call," I said. She paused. "Noelia, you made that company run. We all knew it. Even when they didn't. I have a proposition. We don't want to just keep working with you. We want you to build ours." I stood and walked to the window, the skyline reflecting in the glass. "Tell me more," I said. We talked for 15 minutes. Timelines, growth corridors, clean slate logistics. She didn't ask for a pitch. She knew my track record. After the call ended, I stayed by the window, watching traffic drift below like streams feeding something larger. Brett had spent 5 years insulating himself with titles and relatives, convinced his echo chamber would never break. But it had cracked the moment I stopped speaking inside it. Now the clients were following me, not for a brand, not for a logo, for trust, for clarity, for the work that never asked for applause but earned it anyway. I pulled my notebook from the desk drawer. The same one. The cover slightly worn now, but the spine unbroken. On a clean page, I wrote, Phase 7, don't knock. Build.